Greetings, everyone out there. It is November 12th, and we're currently starting the Parks and Built Environment Council Committee. I am Councilmember Vogely, got Councilmember Ryan, Council Vice President Zarlingo, and we're in the Everett City Council chambers on TV, hopefully too. And today we just have one item on our agenda, and it's super relevant, and I'm glad to have you here, and that is the manufactured home overlay zone ordinance update from staff. And so therefore I will hand it over and you can introduce yourselves and let's get started. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Alice Ann Wetzel. I'm the Long Range Planning Manager for the City of Everett, and I've been leading this project for the manufactured home community zoning. We are not doing an overlay. That is probably one of the updates that I'm going to be giving you. It will be a zone for itself. Since we were last here, in September, I believe we were here. Gosh.
Honestly, I was going to remind everybody beforehand, and I was like, I'm sure everybody's got it down. Nobody calls.
Yeah, you would think by now.
Please carry on.
So when we were here in September, I had recently sent out a letter to all of the owners of the manufactured home parks in the city of Everett, their managers, if that was available information, as well as any residents that I had found information for, and the neighborhood association presidents for the different sites. Since then, I have heard from one owner of one manufactured home park, the mobile home community, just that's what it's called. And their concern was being able to replace a 1-for-1 unit inside if one had to be removed for whatever reasons. And the answer is yes, under the proposed legislation. And then I attended the September 25th Homeowners Association meeting of the Fairway Estates Manufactured Home Park, as did Councilmember Zarlingo. And we had a very robust conversation at that time with State Senator
June Robinson.
June Robinson,
also
thank you.
Councilmember Vogely there as well.
And Councilmember Vogely was there too. So it was a very big crowd. It was hard to tell in that room. And a very robust conversation about the options of either an overlay or a underlying zoning for the manufactured home community, as well as some issues regarding the state legislation, which I won't go into here because we have no control over any of that. And then on October 30th, I attended the Silver Lake Community Association, Neighborhood Association. Councilmember Zarlingo was also at that meeting, and we had a few representatives from Playa del Lago as well as the Silver Shores manufactured home community. I would say at both meetings, we had overwhelming support for the creation of an underlying manufactured home community zone. We are going to be referring to it as all of our residential zones are NR for neighborhood residential. And then we have just straight neighborhood residential. We have neighborhood residential constrained for areas where we limit the middle housing units. And then this would be neighborhood residential and manufactured home community. It will permit manufactured home communities, and that's it. So we are in the process of refining the details right now, and we will be going back to Planning Commission maybe in December because of the schedule, and coming back to you in January because of the holidays are changing all the schedules. That is my full update.
That's not possible.
Yes.
We have plenty of time left that we can talk.
I know. I said to York today, I'm going to take like 5 minutes.
We have questions though.
But
Well, yeah, by all means, ask some questions. Let's get some answers.
Well, yeah, let me start with that. For those who are not as familiar with this, some of which would still include me, can you talk about the things that would be part of manufactured homes? We think about trailers, there are modulars, there are tiny houses, mini houses. Can you talk a little more about how that works out in real?
If they meet the state regulations, they will be permitted. if they are recreational vehicles or tiny houses or manufactured homes, they would all be permitted if they meet the state regulations. Mhm.
And I think Chris, he's from the Alliance for Housing Affordability, Chris Collier?
Collier. Mhm.
Collier.
Mhm.
I believe he said this was perhaps the most dense of the single family
It is.
occupancy types.
Mhm.
So
It
that's
is.
one of the things we're trying to do is get density higher where we can, still compatible with some of these uses.
The density, we will not be changing density on any of these sites because the ones that we are protecting all are pretty much full parks. And if there is a pad there that is vacant, they can replace on that pad. But we are not, so we are not saying that you are allowed 20 manufactured homes to the acre. We're just not even touching that density at all.
So
Mm.
those, yeah, so the kind of property or lot
Mm.
arrangements will, I
Pad
guess,
arrangements.
will stay the same. The pad arrangements will stay the same
Pretty much,
unless,
yes.
unless I suppose those communities decide to reorganize that themselves somewhat.
Well, they're all under ownership. And so
That's right.
if the community purchases itself and wants to redo the ownership, they're allowed that same number of units or fewer.
And then would there be the opportunity for any additional, essentially the equivalent of an ADU or some sort of small addition on that same property?
No.
Okay.
Because the pad size really limits what can go on to it, and the manufactured home fits the pad.
Which is one of the reasons it's so dense.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
then I guess.
There's about 5 feet between each unit.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the only other element that I was thinking about with respect to density that I did want to
Mm.
bring up was that I have talked with some of the leaders in these communities about these are typically 55 and older communities.
Some are, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that is, and I've talked with them a little bit about allowing some allowance for younger live-in
Mhm.
caregivers as a way to yet further increase density and maybe offer some other housing opportunities locally. But that is, as I understand it, that would be essentially up to them.
Yeah, that is in their CCRs.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes. I do want to talk about the state stuff. So it sounds like the state has yet to define what a manufactured home is.
They have several definitions.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is there anything that is coming up in this next legislative session that should be on our radar as a city that might affect this ordinance or
I
definitions?
don't
or-
believe so. It's a short legislative session, and in the conversation that we had at Fairway Estates, there was no mention of it there.
Okay, thank you for those. Earlier on, you had said that you'd only been able to contact one owner. And so maybe or maybe not, is surprising, but having spoken with the residents of other places, was the owner that you were able to talk to? What am I trying to say? We've had a lot of discussion with folks.
Mhm.
And I can't remember now if you said it just before the meeting or at the meeting. They were only concerned, the one owners of the place that you got was only concerned with, could a mobile home be replaced one for one?
Yes.
I just think it's wild, and maybe there's conversation that there's only been one owner that is done.
I mean,
And-
I would have thought we would have heard from more than one. I would have thought we would have heard from even their property managers.
Right.
And I mean, the letter went out snail mail. It did not go out electronically. I did not get any back. So I did not send them registered for signatures. I mean, we could go that route, but that's an expense.
Yeah, no, I
Mm,
think that
mhm.
you're doing due diligence. Absolutely. I just wanted to bring it up again. Because, I mean, it's 5:12.
Mhm.
Hardly had any. Okay, well, I won't be here then,
Mhm.
in January.
Enjoy your
or-
retirement.
Or further on down the line, so I won't be able to vote on this, but I'll let everybody know ahead of time that if I were here, I would.
Mm.
And it would be a resounding yes.
Mm.
So I know that Council Vice President Zarlingo has been keeping in touch really well with everybody. So I don't see it being an issue moving forward. But
Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure we will have plenty of residents here in support of it when we get to the public hearing,
yeah,
because that's all I've heard.
One other question. In terms of the scale of this, I think you said that there's something on the order of about 1,000 residents at maybe 1.5 or so residents per space or per.
Mm.
So we're talking about something under 1% of the city's population that we're affecting here. Okay.
Mhm.
And I guess just maybe it's worth reiterating the purpose behind this has to do with older residents, people who are disabled, people who are low or fixed income, and veterans. And that, as we've seen in some of the folks we've talked to, there are a number of people in these parks who check multiple of those boxes.
I think the other issue that we're dealing with here is the ownership model. And this is a very different ownership model than any other type of residential dwelling in the city or even across the country. The residents of the vast majority of these units own the unit. They do not own the parcel of land on which the unit sits. The parcel of land for some of these units has been going up in their rent dramatically. And it is having an impact on the value of these homes. It is having an impact on the ability of these homeowners to continue to pay the rent. And it is not like they can take their asset and go move it someplace else. Whereas, I mean, if you're in a rental unit, you know you're in a rental unit and there is the opportunity to move your belongings to another location. That is not the same with these, because after a certain period of time, these units, although they're fully functional, are not able to be moved, even if you had a place to move it.
and one more point is it's also the resale value. Like
Right.
some folks, yes, the renting of the pad is becoming quite difficult.
Right.
And then even if the folks are able up to a point to pay their rent and pay off the mortgage, if they did need to sell, when those pad prices go up because the legislation that went through recently doesn't stop from new.
So they've
New-
capped,
yeah.
well, they've capped the amount that the rent can go up per annum to 5%. But if a new person buys the unit, they are able to do a one-time increase. And they are doing significant one-time increases in those bad rentals, anywhere from 100 to 200% is what we've been hearing.
And I think we've also heard that
Mhm.
before that legislation took effect, there were some large, very large rent increases
Mm.
sometimes. And I know that it's been an attractive investment for private equity.
Mm,
That's one of
yes.
the
Mhm.
one of the big drivers of this.
Mhm.
All right.
I'm not going to adjourn us, but we can at least finish this
We haven't
if
talked item
there is
17.
nothing else from.
So the secondary aspect of this is that there is an existing title in the Everett Municipal Code called Title 17 that tells you how to establish a manufactured home park. And that you have to cite them 20 feet from an entrance. You have to have an entrance that's 50 feet wide. You have to have water hookups. You have to have parking. You have signage. And you also have to pay a $20 fee per annum to operate a manufactured home park, which would cost us, which we are not collecting. Nobody knew was even on the books. And would cost us more to collect than it would to get. So we've gone through this whole chapter with Public Works and the fire department and our zoning code staff and determined that there really isn't anything in here that we need in the future because we are not going to be establishing any new manufactured home parks. So the second aspect of what we will be presenting when we come forward is to delete
Mm.
chapter 17.28 or 17 entirely.
Can I make one
Some-
comment? Vice President Zarlingo, you mentioned private equity, which I think is really important here. There's a very good book called Plunder
Mm.
about the insidious intrusion of private equity into the public domain, which I would recommend that we all read because this is just one of many, many examples.
Thank you. Thank you. I suppose that's, yeah. Well, and it is something I have been wanting to learn more about. If I remember right, that is, I guess private equity is investments there are one of the drivers for some purchase of a lot of single family housing, at least in some areas. I know it's
Yep.
it's a very major factor in some areas, maybe less others. I can't say I know what it is here.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
I just got back from a conference in Portland on transit planning and primarily creating transit-oriented developments and transit-oriented communities. And speaking of the plunder topic, and I know we are segueing way off of what I'm here for, but the comment that came out of all of the development projects that were presented was do not sell public land. Lease it. Keep the asset and use the asset, and you can build on the asset for other things, but do not sell the public lands. Which was, I'm sure, what Plunder is getting into to a certain extent too.
Very good. Okay, we will end the topic of the manufactured home zone. No overlay, just zone ordinance updates. So thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
being here and letting us know how it's moving forward. We can talk about the next, so you're free to go or you're free to stay, you're free to do what you will. Next meeting agenda topics, are we gonna have one in December? Is that planned? Or,
We have, I think, 2 topics that we should be ready with, but I'm gonna check with folks on them, but parks and park amenities, naming policy, you talked about this last month and we were almost ready, but wanted to dig in a little bit more. So I think that'll be ready for next month. And potentially downtown parking update. Dun, dun, dun. So maybe that as well. I don't totally know. Someone told me December, I put it on there, but I gotta make sure that that's still, so
okay,
we'd love to have a meeting if you're up to it.
that will be, it's the second one, so December 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right, let's do it. It will be my last for this committee. And that is a good reminder. We were given the current park naming procedures and asked to give our input. I saw that in my bag. I was like, I'm gonna do that. And then I haven't yet. So this is a reminder to all 3 of us. Because I actually was speaking about it with family at home. Who knew? Why would anybody want to talk about that? I don't know, but it was interesting and there was, yeah, there
I had the
was.
same experience and had a couple of ideas and then that got interrupted. So I will
Yeah.
get back to that, but thank you. Mostly in the form of simplifying it, because I think one of the significant changes there was they were called small features or something
Right.
like that could be named, which I think was a great idea. And so it means a small feature, a smaller process.
Okay, yes, please.
We can also, so we're critical area regulations periodic update is coming your way soon, starting in December. We have it penciled in for December 3rd. The Planning Commission is potentially wrapping up their work next week on November 18th. They've had 3 briefings and work sessions on it, I think, so far. As we've steadily refined the proposed ordinance, we do have a proposed package that is out for review. It's on a project website that we have on our webpage. on the planning department webpage. We've sent it out to everybody that we could think of who would have a potential interest in it. Have not gotten a lot of feedback yet, but it's only been a week or two since we've sent that out. We did schedule a couple meetings. We sent it out. We said, let's meet and we'll see what you have at that point with Tulalip Tribes, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and one other tomorrow, this Friday. So we'll bring whatever results that we get by next Tuesday from that public outreach to the Planning Commission. And if they get to a recommendation, they, at a quick turn back to manufactured housing communities, they asked for December off if they are able to complete the critical areas work, so that maybe till January before manufactured housing gets out of the Planning Commission. But if the Planning Commission completes our work with critical areas, then it will be fully with the council. December 3rd is the first briefing. We have not, I don't think, penciled in the next steps after that. You have a lot on your plate in the rest of December. But if there should be questions that come up after the 3rd, we could bring that here on the 10th also.
Can you summarize, is there, I mean, I know there've been these regulations before. This has got a long history. I've been in this room for some of those discussions many years ago. Can we anticipate a major pivot, or is this a adjustment, refinement, recognizing new realities, density, all of that?
Yeah, I think it's there is a big and valuable reorganization of the chapter into articles that make it a little bit easier for a reader to navigate. I don't consider that substantive. It'll be an improvement. Lots of little things to align with. So our requirements is every 10 years we need to review and update our regulations that protect streams, wetlands, steep slopes, other geologically hazardous areas, and floodplains. We need to account for changes and advancements in the best available science that is available to the city. Usually that comes via some work by the Department of Ecology and the state to compile the latest science, and they produce a best available science report. We have written one ourselves that compiles all of that from all the sources that would be applicable to Everett, and that's also on that webpage. A lot of it is just updating definitions, updating kind of model code language that many jurisdictions use, and aligning that and improving readability and everything. There are a couple places that we're writing the environmental checklist and environmental summary right now, which its focus is, what does this do? What are the practical impacts of this? First, it's really difficult to pin those down because everything with critical areas is evaluated site by site. So it's often an interplay between what is the type of development, the value of the development versus the resource to be protected. Biologists and geologists go and actually look at the site and see what the functions and values of a wetland are and what would be adequate protections. And then we have all kinds of flexibilities to average buffers, to mitigate here, and to restore that part. So it's not black and white what the impact is. There are increased stream buffers for type N, which are non-fish bearing and non-shorelines of the state streams. So these are the smaller half of the streams that we have are increasing the buffers from about 50 feet to about 100 feet is the standard buffer. That sounds like a lot, but almost all of those streams are surrounded by either wetlands, which have their own buffers, which are typically larger than the stream buffers. So if you have a stream with now a 100-foot buffer, but next to the stream is a wetland with a 125-foot buffer, then it didn't matter what the stream buffer was because you take the biggest one. The other thing we have in a lot of these streams are steep slopes. Steep slopes, the buffer, regardless of what it is, carries all the way up the slope to 10 or 15 feet above the top of the slope. So searching far and wide in the city, there's got to be some parcels where that buffer increase makes a difference, but it's hard to find. So that's like the simplest thing to look to is the number, and there's an increase there, but it is not as significant as a change as it might look. Other things where I'd say it's interesting, we obviously have a lot of what we'd call non-conforming development that was developed before any protections, or at least much smaller protections for wetlands and streams. So what do you do when a house with a yard and the whole thing is in a buffer wants to expand or add a unit, and what is the trade-offs for that? Typically, it would be restoring some equivalent part of what had been the yard. So if you build a accessory dwelling unit over here and it's in a former buffer, then you can do some restoration on site to account for that. Those types of things are being clarified. I wouldn't even say that they're being changed. They're being, we're adding some definition as to when it's called the vegetative buffer standard is taking place. Right now, maybe you find out somewhat when you propose an application and we review it, and we're trying to put some numeric thresholds to it, but the numeric thresholds should be fairly similar to how it's already been done. All that said, I don't expect a significant impact on developability of the city. I see some improvement in the legibility and the usability of the critical areas framework, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the experts at the state, tribes, environmental organizations, and others have to say on if we're right or not.
I actually just second
Yeah.
understood a lot of what you just said, and and I would like to give a shout out to our departments that work on this, and also probably at the county, because I've been looking in a different county, unnamed, and a lot of the wetlands, like due diligence and figuring out where wetlands are and critical areas are, find it much more pleasing to work with this county than the county that I was looking at all of these things in. So, which also means the city, and just having our regulations, and it's already wild to look at it and figure out all of the things that must be figured out for a lay person, let alone somebody that knows what they're doing. So thanks for bringing that up, and thanks for bringing it forward. And you had something to say?
Well, just two things. One of them, if I understand it correctly, not too long ago, the county passed their own revisions in this area. And I guess wanted to make sure that was the one that I remember correctly. But the other thing is, my sense of this is that these kinds of things are becoming bigger issues, not because of the changes in the regulations, but because as we build out, the remaining buildable land remained unbuildable because it was typically more challenging to build on, more difficult, maybe more expensive, reduced profitability. But it's a little bit like the situation we're in to some degree with trees and tree cover. We want the density, but we also want the trees. And so I guess my sense of it is that this does what I would like to see, which is it clarifies things and it adds intelligence to the process, which is the same thing in a way we're going to have to do with trees. If we want trees, we're going to have to be more careful about this. And the 100-foot tall Douglas firs are not going to be so prevalent, but hopefully there will be others as alternatives. I guess wanted to see if I'm seeing that the right way. And I guess I look forward to this. I have not been going through the Planning Commission's deliberations yet, but
You will benefit from that because it'll be more refined and easy to follow. They are kind of our practice round to refine our messages and everything. I love the idea of adding intelligence to the program. I think that's what we're aiming for. The counties are huge and covered with less developed lands, and that was a bit of a debate at Snohomish County and in all of the others. I think a lot of that is because there are tons and tons of streams that have not been developed around, or very lightly so. In Everett, it's a much different story. So I don't anticipate the same kind of difficult trade-offs that were faced in the county for us. Much smaller version of it.
all right. That's it for me. Thanks.
Well, I think you did a fantastic job of getting us to 30 minutes of work time. And unless there are any questions or more observations, I would adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.